Hey guys, Brook Potter here. I do apologize that I haven't been putting out a lot of content on this video. I'm almost to 2,000 subscribers, so I want to thank everybody who's recently joined me on this journey. There's been a lot going on, and I thought I will start making content again, although recently I've been focusing more on the podcast. Firstly, the 10K Rum podcast that I do with my co-host Amos Joe. It's a featured channel on my channel as well as a playlist below, or you could just search for the 10K Rum podcast and you'll be able to find that. We do that every Sunday. I've also joined another podcast called The Religion Zero, which is basically the three branches of the church. We've got a Protestant, Evangelical, Catholic, and Eastern Orthodox. We discuss social, political happenings as well as theological differences between the church. So yeah, I also do that on Sundays. I think there's a playlist on my channel as well as on the 10K Rum channel. So if you're interested in that, please do check that out. In this video, I wanted to do a review of the pandemic of 2020, which is, I should have thought of this before. This is such a unique, once-in-a-lifetime sort of incident, at least for us out here in the West. I should have been documenting, the happenings and doing like daily vlogs and updates and stuff because, I mean, for my own posterity, I think it'd be good to remember some of the things that happened at this time. But yeah, I was kind of tracking the pandemic spread in China very early on. Around February, I'd cashed out of all of my stock positions and I went into a full cash position. And just knowing that, 40% of the world's growth from last year came from China. The minute the pandemic came out, especially after I saw how the Chinese were building these mega hospitals in record time, I kind of knew this was going to be serious. And regardless of, other economic things, if China is closed, which is the manufacturing heart of the entire world, including the US, it was going to have severe economic situations. So I was kind of monitoring it. Around early March, before the virus had hit Italy and other places, I was talking to my flatmate and his wife, and I said, maybe we should stock up on like a month's worth of supplies just in case, So before any of the rushing, before any of the, toilet shortage and stuff like that, me and my friend went out to the Tesco out here and we stocked up on toilet paper, canned foods, cleaning goods, sanitizer, bleach wipes, all the good stuff, as well as a whole bunch of water. I got like 6 5-liter bottles of water and stuff like that. And yeah, we had stocked up early, just in the event, because I kind of knew there was going to be a run and I didn't want to be caught out. I mean, I didn't expect it was going to be the end of the world, but I did not want to be caught without toilet paper and food. I think I even bought a water distillery. So one of those machines that, evaporates and condenses the water, just in case. I never opened it, but I figured I'd get it. I also got a couple masks. They didn't turn out to be very good, but I tried to get these N95 masks and stuff like that. So I was well ahead of the curve on a lot of this stuff. And by the time the lockdown had come across to, Italy and England, I knew it was going to get serious. The market started crashing. I think it made it all the way down to about 18,000, the Dow. So yeah, it was something that I was definitely monitoring. Now I was sick on and off around this period. I suspect that I had it. Later, it was confirmed that the women who work downstairs from our house actually were confirmed to have had the virus. Like they work as part of the council, and the council put out a message: anybody who's been in the shop, self-isolate and stuff like that. At the same time, my flatmate has been back and forth to the Chinese embassy because, ironically, he's got a job heading out to China pretty soon, and I kind of suspect that maybe he picked it up there and brought it back home to us, and we may have given it to the ladies working downstairs. But I mean, not necessarily, because again, it's a tourist spot that's downstairs, so anybody could walk in and out and stuff like that. So it's very possible that they could have given it to us. But I was actually sick for that time. I did the 2-week isolation, 14-day isolation, and it ended just before the lockdown kicked into effect. That Friday, I got a message from my friends over at the Welsh Harp, like, this is it. The last of the last. I went out there, and anybody who's watched my Instagram sees some fantastic videos of that night, hanging out with the crew for the last time. We we don't know how long it's going to be. We think it's a month. I suspect 2 months. And, we were having drinks and, just having a great time. There's a video of me singing, it's the end of the world as we know it, sort of thing. And yeah, we went into the lockdown, and I mean, for me, at least, we were advised not to go to work, but I worked right next door to where I live. So as a result, I would still go to work. I would still go to the office. Nobody would show up in the office. I would be on my own, self-isolated, as they say. And, as people have been watching the podcast, I've been in the office broadcasting and doing other things. Been doing a lot of studying, doing a lot of reading. I got very much into meditation, some of the lectures by Neville Goddard and Brian Scott of the Reality Revolution. Some very interesting stuff, and definitely helped my peace of mind. And I just feel so relaxed and stuff like that now that I've incorporated these types of meditations. So that's my new skill that I picked up. I did join a number of online learning courses, EDX, and a couple other things. I was doing one on, the scriptures and the Bible and stuff like that. And it was kind of laborious, and I kind of canceled my way through that. I also been doing some studying with the markets, just kind of honing my skills, listening to a lot of podcasts about the markets, especially Frank Curzio and his company, Curzio Research. I think he also called the top of the market very early on. He's kind of the guy that I follow at this point for a lot of this kind of information. So yeah, I was keeping busy. Wasn't able to get to the gym, which was very disappointing, but I'd reduced myself to 1 meal a day because I was just sitting on my ass all day in the office. I wasn't really doing anything. So I would do like steak and eggs in the morning, and that was it. And, for those who know, I'm still on the carnivore diet. Fortunately, I had enough steaks in the house that I thought would last for the duration. I'd stocked up pretty early before. And between the steaks that I had in the house, plus I would still buy food in the week to try and support the local community. I would get a breakfast from the Gatehouse. I would, get regular coffees. In fact, I bought so many coffees from them, I'm probably entitled to like 3 free coffees. But I told them, look, I don't want any free coffee. I'm supporting you guys during this pandemic. I'll collect the free coffee later on. And so I have the cards all filled up, and I'm not using them because I wanted to support them. As well as a couple of the kebab shops. Oh, Z Kebabs out here. Fantastic. I could get a stack of 4 burger patties and some chicken strips for like £12.50. So it's, a really good deal. As well as Sundays was my cheat day. I would actually give myself a cheat day on Sundays, and I would usually have pizza, meat pizza, of course. And yeah, I was living my best life, man. It was, I was really enjoying this. Every evening when I'd leave the office around 9, earlier on when the place was really quiet, I'd go out into the Abbey Gardens, and I would, sit in the gardens and, look at the ducks and the birds and talk to God and, kind of tune in with the universe. And I'd be listening to podcasts and meditations and other things like that. Really, really just great times. I think those are some of the most memorable times that I've had during this whole pandemic. Now that the restrictions have lifted and stuff, I still go out for walks, and it's still beautiful, but of course everybody's out now. So, and we're coming into summer, so it's definitely a different scenario at this point. And for the most part, I stayed indoors. I did manage to have some pretty epic mushroom trips, seeing as those were the only trips that I was going to be on. In line with the trips, though, I was actually supposed to make a trip out to Trinidad in March. I think it was the 15th of March, around that time. Just about when all of this was starting to kick off, the lockdowns had come into effect in Italy. England was on the verge, and they were advising people not to travel. Saying, look, get back to England now if you're away and stuff like that. And I was back and forth. I was talking to people in Trinidad, like, what's going on? What will happen and stuff. And around that time, I was recovering from the illness that I had. And I still had a little bit of a temperature. And I figured if I came into the country and they saw I had a temperature, they're going to quarantine me for another 2 weeks. My stay would have only been for 10 or 11 days. It didn't make sense to do that. So I ended up canceling my trip to Trinidad in March. I probably should have postponed it till next year, but I didn't know. We just didn't know what was going to be the outcome of this whole thing. So I canceled the hotel I was supposed to stay at, as well as my Airbnb. Fortunately, got all the money back on that. I was also supposed to go out to Body Power, which was supposed to be in May of this year, go and see Robert Frank and the crew from the Glorious House Against podcast, as well as, all of the other athletes and stuff like that. And to meet up with the Glorious House Against fans, Paul Young and a whole bunch of the other guys out here in the UK. But yeah, had to cancel that as well. Canceled my Birmingham hotel stay at that, what is it, the stadium, the Hilton at the stadium. I don't know what it's called. The NEC, I think, at the convention center. Yeah. Canceled that, postpone, just got the money back for all that kind of stuff. So yeah, all of my travel plans for pretty much the rest of the year probably canceled at this point. I will look to go out to Trinidad next year in March. And just to say a little bit about the actual virus, like I saw what was happening early on in China, and I'm going to share my theory. If you've been watching the podcast, you'd know my theory on this already. I don't think it was engineered. I don't think this is a bioweapon. I think this is something that naturally occurs in bats. They were probably studying it in Wuhan at the lab there, and it's possible that somebody was exposed, and that for early transmission is probably what happened. But I suspected that the outbreak in China would be more severe because the early transmission of the disease is the purest form of the disease. But evolutionarily, as the virus wants to survive, it doesn't make sense to kill the host. It would probably get weaker and weaker as time went on, which was my suspicion. And I think we're kind of seeing that at this point. The early spike in the cases and stuff like that bared itself out, but about 30 different strands of the virus went around the world, some, affecting people more than others and stuff like that. And we still don't have all the data, but I suspected it was going to get weaker and weaker as it entered into the human population and probably become just like the flu. And the more information we're getting and stuff like that, it seems that theory may be bearing out. I still think it might be pretty serious in China. As of recently, they've locked down Beijing. And yeah, there's a whole bunch of complications that come from that. Again, 40% of the world's growth last year came from China, the manufacturing heart of the world. And China is still kind of struggling through this. And especially, some of the videos we see of what's going on in China is quite frightening. I suspect we're going to have some major economic fallout from this, plus all the quantitative easing and stuff like that. I think we have some major economic problems that are still to come in the US and in the UK and Europe and elsewhere. But yeah, for the most part, we seem to be kind of getting over it. The restrictions out here in England are lifting. I recently made a trip out to Wales. I've done 3 trips out to Wales now. I've done Cardiff, Newport, and I went up to Aberdare recently and Pontypridd. I will be doing an entire video on my trip out to Wales and what's happening in that department. But yeah, for the most part, it was great. A couple of times, a friend of mine who works at the Welsh Harp, he had his birthday just around the time the restrictions were easing. And I managed to go up there and have a couple of drinks with him and the guys and see all of the regulars from the pub. Excuse me. And yeah, just, hang out like we did and, just catch up and stuff like that. It was really, really good to see all the regulars and touch base with them. And a couple of people I've met in the gardens while I've taken a walk. I've seen a lot of my friends out here, and it's just been great to connect with them and spend some time with them during this whole season. I try to do my best to do all the social distancing and other things. And even when I did my trip, I had to get a face covering. So I have the mask, but because I have the beard, it's not effective to wear a mask. So I do a face covering, like a balaclava, straight down to my neck. So that kind of helps. I did that on the train. But yeah, all in all, we'd prepared pretty early. My supplies are now kind of running out, but things are starting to reopen out here, at least in England. Wales is about 2 weeks behind. They've just relaxed a few of the regulations. Non-essential shops could open and other things like that, which explains why the beard is looking as epic as it is, because I haven't actually been able to get it trimmed properly. I could trim it, but I prefer when these other guys do it. And for the record, I did not shave my head for the pandemic. I shaved my head before the pandemic. So all of these guys who are doing that, they're copying me. I was the first. So yeah, all in all, I've really made the most of the time. I will do another video explaining a couple of the announcements that I have about, my continued adventures out here in the UK, where that's going, what that's leading to, as well as, continue with the podcast and stuff like that. I do want to get into more streaming on this channel. I'm going to start building up this channel again, as I really haven't put out a lot of content here. But as always, guys, be sure to like, share, and subscribe if you'd like to see more. Of course, if you have comments and have some interesting stories you want to share about your time during the pandemic, put your comments below. And as always, thanks for watching. Take care, guys.